Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kathy Brandon. I am your happiness chick and the host of Ready for Happiness Live. We have a great show today for you. We have Minette Riordan, Minette is just so powerful in the business world, and she is so powerful in the lives of creative professional women in this world that I cannot wait to introduce you to her and have you tell her story. So I want to welcome everybody who's come back for another edition of Ready for Happiness Live. We really hope that these stories of real people creating real happiness is helping inspire you into what you want to do in this world to make your own happiness. And welcome to those who are with us for the first time. The Ready for Happiness Live show has been on the air for almost 2 years now, and our purpose here, our sole job, is to inspire and introduce you to people who have created a unique way of being happy in this world. And they're doing it so well that they have this burning desire to help everyone else. So of course we wanted to get on air and we want to share these people with you so that you can access them, so that you can be inspired, so that you know that you're not the only one out there that is creating happiness for yourself in a weird little crazy way. So hi Minette, welcome.
Hi, there's my hand. Woo. Hi.
How are you doing this morning in beautiful Santa Barbara?
You know, I'm doing fabulous. It's June gloom in Santa Barbara, so it's actually gray and cloudy and moist, which is this beautiful change from sunshine. You might think that I'm crazy for saying that, but there's something really refreshing about having just some different weather. It's really beautiful here, but the weather gets a little boring. I miss my Texas thunderstorms.
Oh, I'll bet. We've had quite a few recently, so yeah, you've had to like watch through the news, right?
Yes.
I know. Okay, so let's roll it back a little bit. What we usually do on the show is we really go back to the person, right? Because it's the person who inspires the movement. And so let's roll back the tape on Minette. Like, where were you born? Were you raised by two parents? You know, how did you get to Santa Barbara? I know it's a long story, so kind of crunch it up and give us the highlights.
The highlights, cool. So I was actually born on an Air Force base in Big Spring, Texas, over in the Panhandle. That's not even there anymore. My dad was in the Air Force, did a couple of tours in Vietnam, and when he was in Vietnam, we moved back to San Antonio and lived with my grandparents. So I was really raised in San Antonio, Texas. I'm a native Texan for many generations back, and very proud to be a Texan, but very happy to be living in California, and I'll talk more about that as we go along in the show a little bit later. Yes, I was raised by two parents until I was about 7 or 8. Parents got divorced. Both of them ended up remarried. So I would honestly say I was raised by 4 parents for a big part of my life. I was really lucky to have 2 amazing step-parents, both of whom I've lost. They're no longer alive. Lost my stepdad just this past December. And so it's been an amazing journey to, and Kathy, you'll laugh about this. I went into therapy, as you can imagine, being raised by 4 parents when I was in college, and she laughed at my family tree because it was backwards. Most of the time it's 2 parents and then, you know, all these kids, and mine was inverted, right? You know, there's all these parents and then just me and my brother. So I'd say that had a big impact on, you know, my passion and my focus. It definitely impacted my desire to get married and have a family of my own. I was pretty hesitant. I didn't have a lot of really great role models for what that looked like. And my husband now of almost 18 years has certainly convinced me that a happy marriage is absolutely possible. We have 2 amazing kids. They're 15 and 12. And I'm enjoying a couple of weeks without them. They're in Vancouver, British Columbia. My husband's Canadian, hanging out at Camp Nanny and Granddad for a couple of weeks, so having a grand old time. You know, so, I mean, I stayed in Texas for a long time. I went to Texas A&M for undergrad. I have a BA in Spanish. I have a master's from UT in Latin American literature. And you're probably wondering, what does that have to do with anything? Well, at the time, it had a lot to do with everything. And I ended up, after my master's, going to Stanford University and getting my doctorate in Spanish, specializing in 19th and 20th century Latin American poetry, of all things. And you never know the journey that life is going to take you on, Kathy. I thought I was going to be a college professor. And by that time, I had met my husband and realized that my relationship was more important. And I really wasn't willing to move around the country every year to find a tenure track position. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going to teach at a private high school for troubled teens in Northern California. in Redding, just south of the Oregon border. It was a beautiful place. Brad and I got married there in the backyard of our first house, and it was a lot of fun. We had a great time there for a couple of years, got ready to start a family, decided to leave my job teaching teens. And I have to tell you, just as a quick aside, one of the things you asked us to focus on for today is, where does our passion come from? Those teenagers taught me more about integrity and honesty and clarity than probably anybody else in my life. And I think they really set me on a path of not just personal development, but really helping others to find their truth and their passion as well and support them in doing that. Long story short, we ended up following Brad's job from Colorado back to Texas, ended up in the Plano, Texas area, which is where I met Kathy. And that was we moved there when I was pregnant with Connor in 1999. I knew nobody, Kathy. It was a really rough time to move to a new community, pregnant, had to find a new OB. We all know those stories. Right. And so, yeah, it was a real challenge. It was not a fun time. But I got 2 amazing kids out of it, ended up starting my business when the kids were 3 and 1. I love school. I didn't go to school for my whole life to sit at home and do nothing, so I started a magazine. Why not? Who knew? I had no idea what I was doing. At the time, was just a big risk taker and willing to figure it out. And so I started this little small quarterly publication that then quickly grew to a monthly publication with a circulation of 50,000, a staff of 8. Yeah, and then, it's interesting. The economy changed, media and marketing changed with the birth of the internet. 2008, things really started to crash. Probably 30% of our clients actually went out of business during that crash. So it was time to take a look and reconfigure things. So we stopped doing print. We converted our print magazine to a website, which is still going strong in Texas, NorthTexasKids.com. So happy that legacy is still alive and well. And in the midst of all of those changes and growth processes, my husband and I took a hard look at where we were and what we wanted to create for our lives, and realized that we were tired of living in the Plano area. We had great friends and connections, but from an environmental perspective and just what really made us happy, which mostly is being outside a lot, which doesn't happen for too many months out of the year in the Dallas area, we decided we wanted to be back on the West Coast, and we wanted to be close to family. So it took us about 2 years to prepare for the journey. It was a big move. It was really hard to yank those roots after 13 years in Plano and leave behind a lot of great connections, friends, colleagues, the only school and home my kids had ever known, and relocate to Santa Barbara, California. But we did. It was the best thing we ever did. It was one of those magical journeys where everything that could go right did. And we've been here 2 years. Actually, June 10th is today the 10th? And today's June 10th. Today is our 2nd year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
To Santa Barbara. And so it's been a wild ride and an amazing one, and we have never been so happy. And so I want to just, share with people that there have been a lot of ups and downs in our life and in our marriage and in our journey, but we were always on the same page, and we were always willing to work it out. And we committed to making a big change that we knew that was best for our family, and we made it happen because we were 100% committed to doing the right thing. And we've never had so much fun. My kids love it here. They've adjusted really well. They wish they could just move all their Texas friends here with them. But it's been amazing. We're less than 2 miles from the beach. I look at the gorgeous mountains every day that are covered in lemon groves. There's palm trees everywhere. It's all the magic you hear about Santa Barbara being the American Riviera. It's really true. It's gorgeous here. So that was a long nutshell.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit. You touched on a lot of stuff in your story. You created this magazine that, is still thriving. You took your family across the country because you and your husband, decided that was the environment that you wanted to be a part of. You really wanted to be in alignment. Mm-hmm. You wanted to live. Because one of the things that I want people to understand about you, Minette, and because it's hard, right? When we're out there creating this unique way of being happy for ourselves, a lot of times we have to change things around in our life. Mm-hmm. And we have to change where we live and change how we think about where we live. And, you said that it took you guys about 2 years. Now talk to us a little bit about, before that 2-year it took you about 2 years once you got the vision together, right?
Right.
Right. But what occurred for you? Because I know there's a magical story kind of inside your story. And then
Hmm.
ask the next question, because we all want to know what created this huge contribution for you now. But take us back to like the 2 years before you and your Mr. Man said, hey, we're going to do this, and this is the plan, and this is the timing, and this is what's up. Talk to us about what occurred. What occurred for you that got you to that big step? Like, not everybody at our age with our kids at that time in their life will say, okay, I'm going to take my entire family and move them across country, because we want to be in a place where people care more about the environment than the community we're in.
Hmm.
Not about Texas. There's just a difference between Dallas, Texas, and Santa Barbara, California. There's a way you want to live, right? You want to wake up every morning and you want to be able to see the mountains because it does something for you, right? So tell me about the few years leading up to that big decision. What was that? Tell us what that looked like for you guys.
Yeah, so there was a lot going on. There just My husband wasn't happy with his job. He wasn't happy with where we were living. He's really interested in being a triathlete. It's really hard to train in the Dallas area just from a weather perspective. It's either too hot or too cold and not a lot in between. It's flat. There's no hills. There's no ocean. He's a water baby, grew up in Nova Scotia, Canada, so he was really missing being on the ocean. And it had always been our dream to be back on the West Coast. We met in the Bay Area when I was at Stanford. And we got really stuck, Kathy. I think that was the hard part. We got stuck raising our kids, living our life, going to work every day. I was committed to building this magazine, and he really supported me in that. But at the end of the day, it wasn't what he needed at all. But the biggest thing was we got really complacent, and I want people to really hear that, because I think we get stuck. It's so hard to make these kind of changes. It's like going to have a tooth pulled. Right? It has to be really painful before you commit to doing something that dramatic. Our kids were in phenomenal schools. They had great friends. We had great colleagues. I always laugh and say the whole time that I lived in Plano, from the first day that I joined the Plano Chamber of Commerce, which was one of the ways I really started my business, and it really supported me throughout the years of my business, was I never did business with a stranger, right? If I needed a plumber or a coach or whatever, I either knew somebody personally or I knew somebody who could give me a really great referral. And it was such an amazing way to live, being that connected. And to give all that up, not to mention giving up girlfriends that I'd had for 13 years, it's at my age, it is hard to start over. So two things conspired to make it happen. One was the timeliness of my son's age. At the time, Connor was only a couple years away from high school, and I had promised that I wouldn't move him in high school. So it created this kind of false deadline, this sort of manufactured deadline, which made it easier to commit and say that we wanted him to have at least 1 year in middle school before he started high school. So that gave us this wonderful sense of urgency to make it happen. Otherwise, we probably would have just still been talking about it and not actually taking action. But also, I think we got to a point where, like, if we don't make this change now, we're stuck here until Maggie gets out of high school, which was like another 8 years, right? And the thought of being there for 8 years was more painful than what it took to move. Now, moving to Santa Barbara, California wasn't probably the easiest financial decision we'd ever made either. As people know, the cost of living in Plano is much more affordable. So there were a lot of things that we had to do that we had not always been great at. We had to get our money in order. We had to get our house in order. We'd been living there 13 years and hadn't really done a lot of work on it. It needed some updating and fixing and repairs. There were emotional things that need to happen. We had to really prepare our kids for why we were leaving. That was their big question, why? And that sense of, especially from, a 13-year-old boy, this is so unfair that you're making this decision and that I don't even get a say in it. So it was really taught us how to communicate effectively as a family, and also the really positive benefits of playing the what if game, as Mindy Odlin would say, and just saying, well, what if it all goes right? What if we get the perfect house? What if we get the perfect job? And it just allowed us all to look at life so differently than we ever had before. It was hard. It was painful. Kathy, that last day, we literally drove out of Plano when the kids got out of school. and the kids are sobbing and crying, and my husband is in tears, and I'm in tears thinking, okay, what have we done? Is this the right move to make? And then we had this beautiful 2-week journey across country, just the 4 of us together, hitting all the national parks. And there's one point where you come out of LA, headed north towards Santa Barbara, and the ocean is just right there open before you. And it was like, as soon as we saw that ocean, we knew everything was going to be okay. And being here, like you said, it's not just seeing the mountains, but it's having the opportunity to live an outside life has always been really important to us, and not something that we felt really able to do. Plus, we were so caught up, Kathy, in the busyness of our life in Plano, we weren't making space. So creating change, it had this rippling effect that really allowed us to look at our life differently and be much more intentional about what it is that we want. And what does happy mean? Redefining happiness was a big part of what spurred us to make the change and got us here and keeps us going here.
Nice, nice. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things. You know, we only have 20 minutes, so I need to get moving with the interview. There's so many things inside that we're going to come back to. Just for everybody watching the show, I want you guys to understand that Minette is a happiness provider inside the Ready for Happiness group, so you can always access Minette at www.MinetteRiordan.com or www.readyforhappiness.com. You can just look under Happy Family, and you'll find Minette all over the place. You can go to YouTube. Minette has her own YouTube channel. I have Minette all over my YouTube channel, which is Happiness Chick. So, I mean, if you guys are getting a little antsy, getting a little squirrel, ADHD, then you can browse on over there, and you can kind of be scooting around while you're watching the video. Now, Minette, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what you do right now. Then I want to talk about why are you doing what you're doing. But tell everybody exactly what you do right now, because you do something very unique in the world. And so I want you to have a chance to tell people what you do.
So my passion is helping married women entrepreneurs with kids get everything working in their life. What I hear from women so often is they're overworked, overwhelmed, overtired, not making enough money. And when all of those things feel like they're not working, it impacts your marriage, it impacts your relationship with your kids, and you feel disconnected, isolated, sad, fearful, brings up so many emotions. So I take a really creative, holistic approach to business. If you ask me, I could say I'm a business strategist, I'm a marketing coach, I'm a creativity coach. I mean, there's so many labels, and all of them fit, but the truth is I take a holistic approach to women in business that looks at how everything's working in their life and make sure that all the pieces are working so that they can play and have fun and both enjoy their work and their life. Because if one of them isn't working properly, then it impacts all the other ones. And so if we start with your relationship and your marriage, great. If we start with getting more money coming in the door, because that will ease all the other things, great. So everybody comes in kind of at the same place, feeling stuck, unhappy, and not knowing what to do next. And our first step is always just creating a plan for what's possible. If I represent anything, Kathy, it's anything is possible if you're clear about what it is that you want. And if that's, if you ask me how I got to Santa Barbara, that is the nut of the answer. It was clarity about what exactly it was that we wanted. And once you get clear, as you know, Kathy, all the steps fall into place pretty easily. I'm not saying it's easy. It takes hard work. But it's absolutely anything is possible. I don't believe in work-life balance. As moms, it's a juggling act. We have to have all these balls in the air. And if you watch a juggler, Kathy, they're only focused on one ball at a time. They're not multitasking. Multitasking is a mistake.
It's a lie. Look, I'm like, it's a lie. I just said that yesterday. Somebody was talking about something at a golf tournament, and I just looked over. I said, multitasking is a lie. Everybody just stopped and looked at me like I had a cauliflower growing out of my head. But yes, I am Chick, and yes, I am saying multitasking is a lie. I'm so glad you said that. We could do a whole.
It's all about focus, Kathy. It's all about focusing on one activity at a time and giving your full attention to that activity. Happiness comes from focus and intention.
Yeah, yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about this passion. Now, what occurred for you in your life? I mean, you told us a lot of things. Tell us something very pivotal that happened in your life that made you really want to contribute to married women and married business owners. It's a huge place. If your marriage explodes, your business explodes. If your business explodes, your marriage explodes. And then, you have your kids that are, casualties of war.
Yeah.
So it's a very big problem that you're out there addressing in the world today. And I know you have your book From Fizzle to Sizzle that, and I can attest, your book is all about a marriage needs one champion, at least one champion. It can start with one champion. And I really love that about a marriage. I love that you bring that into a marriage situation because there are so many people out there that aren't talking like that. So tell us what occurred for you in your life that brought you to this place, right, when you had so many other options as a passion and career.
So why this one? I think I've always just had a heart for families and parenting, probably because, even though I had a bit of a crazy family, I had so much love. I mean, to have the love of 4 great parents, pretty special, right, growing up. Whether they were models of great relationships is another story or not. But I think once I had kids, that combined with my own quest for personal development and the work that I did with teens sort of set me on this path of helping people to create happy families. And what I found was that happy families start with happy marriages, and that it's sad to see marriages fail because no one's willing to take responsibility and really step up and be that change agent, as we say in our book. And one of the things that I think really impacted Brad and I was that between kids and work, we got really disconnected from each other. And we weren't even necessarily on the same page. And I think Connor was probably about 10 at the time. And we kind of looked at each other and said, our kids are getting bigger. It's time to take a look at what we want, what makes us happy. So there was never any lack of commitment to go forward together. But there was this sense that things could be a lot better than they are right now, and what do we need to do to make that happen? And my cat just came into the room. I don't know if you can hear her meowing in the background.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah, she's very noisy. My husband's coming to rescue her and take her out of the room. Sorry about that, everybody. And, it was just, we actually hired a coach, and we worked with the coach individually and together to just get us back on the same page. And that started the dreaming about California. It didn't really get us committed to making some of the changes. But I think once we had clarity about where we were on the same page, where we were on a different page, and what needed to happen to get us on the same path. And when I realized, Kathy, how simple it was it was emotionally, it was difficult conversations, but at the end of the day, we both realized we wanted the same things and we were willing to do whatever it took to get there. So it was a combination of my personal journey and also so many of the women I know. I have so many women friends that own businesses that ended up getting divorced and having to shut down their business, which had been their dream, because they couldn't financially swing it without their husband's support. And I see so many women business owners who aren't getting support from their spouses, who aren't entrepreneurs, and they don't understand what it looks like. And Brad and I's personal dream is to be in this business together, right? How can we make this work? And that would be, for me, the happiest place to work with couples who are totally committed to living, working, being married, raising their kids together. And it's possible. I have a friend right now, she and her husband are both massage therapists, and they're taking a whole year off with their twin boys to drive around the United States for a year. They're going to homeschool their kiddos and spend a whole year in an RV, right, just seeing the world. And it's like anything is possible if you plan for it and make it happen. But it's all about really being consistent and clear and on the same page and being willing to do whatever it takes to stay on the same page. So I'm super passionate about that happy marriage, happy business intersection because it's so possible. It's not necessarily easy, but it's absolutely possible if you're committed.
Mm-hmm. And we're seeing more and more families who are wanting to create more of a lifestyle type of profession. People are really starting to understand that this separation that we've always had between business and family is, it's kind of like the multitasking thing. It's really great to buy. And, for us to have the expectation of being able to, if we have an argument with our spouse in the morning, to be able to just, okay, on our drive to work, we're going to drink our coffee and suck it up because we have to be happy, happy, joy, joy when we get there. Because in order to be a good professional, you have to, no matter what, pretend that everything's happy, happy, joy, joy. And so it's just, we've created this environment professionally as a world, as a society, that doesn't allow us to be human. And I love the place that you've created. You've created this place for a long time, and I'm really excited to be a part of the actual structure of support that you're offering. Like, it's an honor for us to be in this place. We've waited a long time to be in this place, this happy marriage, happy business place. And the timing is impeccable.
Can I add something, Kathy, to what you said? So, this is my second business, right? I owned the magazine for 11 years. And I just want to, when we were starting that magazine all those years ago, it was because we wanted something different for our kids. I knew I didn't want to stay home. I was a terrible stay-at-home mom. I was so bored. It was not supporting me at all. But my husband and I were super committed to having one of us be present and flexible for our kids. Yes. And we have always done that, right? We both have been lucky enough to have the flexibility to be here with our kids. And right now we have totally created that lifestyle business, even though he still works for a company. We both work from home. We have a shared office space. And we are here every day, Kathy, when our kids get home from school. And right now at 15 and 12, it feels more crucial than ever to just be present. And they come into the office and they say hello and they tell us how their day was. And we're just here all the time. And it makes such a difference. So many of us grew up in the 70s and 80s as latchkey kids. Both parents were working. We came home alone. There was no one around. It wasn't what we wanted. So I would say from day one, we've been super intentional about creating the type of atmosphere that we wanted for our kids. Has it always worked perfectly? No. Have we made a lot of mistakes? Yes. Was I a great business owner and a mom? No. There were times when the stress almost killed me. I would never do it the same way again. And it almost, I really had times where I was putting my business first, then my kiddos, and Brad was at the very bottom of the list. It wasn't working. And so those were, you ask about what occurred. I think it was living through those really hard times and coming out the other side going, this is not what we want. There has to be a different way. And being then, again, it's that clarity around, okay, if there's a different way, what does it look like and how can we make it happen?
I like the fact that you're talking about tangible, grab a hold of, right, concepts. You're not talking about, even when you're talking in the dreaming phase, in the implementation phase, one of the things I really love about what you're out there doing is, I'm passionate about readiness, implementation, sustainability. We get locked into these, we get ready, right, to make a change. Yeah. And then we get all locked in the dreaming phase and never get out of dreaming. And so that tears us up even deeper. And then, or, we'll move out of dreaming and we'll get into implementation. And then we have all these scattered projects everywhere, right? We all have that t-shirt. And so I like the fact that you are now living, because I've known you for years, you're now living, breathing inside sustainability of your happy. You have totally transitioned your universe. And you have come full circle inside what you and Brad consider your unique vision of a happy family. You're present. You're home with your kids when they walk in that door. I feel the same way. I've built my business to support that, so I understand how deep of a commitment that is, and the joy. I mean, just the joy that you and Brad get, like when those kids come in. I call it, the after-school drive-by, right? They come in, drop their bags, they come in, and they're like, blah, 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 right? And thank God.
Then they're gone.
Yeah, they don't have to argue over, which one. I was just talking to Mommy, right? And so they can each grab one of you guys. So it's even more powerful for you guys in what you're actually truly able to live inside your happiness, right? You guys are in the sustainability factor. So you guys
are, Kathy, but I will say it's a work in progress. So I also don't want to tell people that, it's this absolute perfect situation where it's all working like a miracle. It takes time and effort. My husband is training for an Ironman triathlon right now, My son was in band and jazz. I've had a lot of travel this year. So it's felt like since January there's been a lot of times when we're apart and away. And so we really have to look at that and say, wow, is this really what we want and we're trying to create? And so, it's almost comical. My kids are gone for 3 weeks. Well, Brad's out of town this week. I'm out of town next week. You think it would be this great opportunity for us to have all this time together, and it hasn't worked out that way. And so it reminds us about how important, you talked about implementation, it reminds us how important that longer, deeper look at implementation, calendar planning, and refocusing on what's important are really, really crucial. And we're not always great at that part. So, I won't say we have it perfect. I think the difference is that we're committed to working on it on a regular basis.
I think when you're sitting in sustainability, you do have to check, right? It's just like anything else, right? You build a boat, you put it on the water, you get on the ocean, and even though the boat is great, it's holding water, there are still all these elements of being on the ocean in a boat that you still have to deal with. So you have to reinvent this fix, right? Because you spring a hole and you may not have your supplies. So you have to reinvent. You have to go right back to ready. Then you have to go to implement, and then back to, I think that's what the sustainability game is. And you living that. It doesn't mean that you're at the end of the game when you hit sustainability. It means that you have this level of commitment. You have your boat, right? Like you and Brad have built your boat. And you guys are on that ocean, and even though you still, your boat has maintenance, you have to do maintenance, you have to do oil changes, you have to do this. Like this year I'm hearing it's, you guys have all this fabulous, and now you're kind of being challenged by this whole calendar. And so you guys are going to have to get a lot more strategic and a lot more creative with how you're going to find your intimate, ooh, I want to date with Brad time.
Yeah, right. Definitely.
Yeah, the whole fly into each other, how do you make that work, right? How do you budget for that? How do you plan for that?
Well, having both of us work from home helps a lot with that. We get a lot of together time.
Yeah.
It's easy to sneak off at lunchtime for a walk or, quiet conversation or more fun stuff, right? So it's that creating that flexible lifestyle has really helped. It would be different if one or the other of us then, on top of all of that, was going to an 8 to 5 job out of the house, and then adding other craziness on top of that. And, our kids have reached an age where they're more busy. They're less needy in some ways and more needy in others. So, it's a lot. It's a time of real change. And just being aware of that, I think, is half the battle.
I think so. I think we've covered so much on the show today. I think it's exciting. I want to talk about how people can access you. I want to give people the opportunity. Anybody who's watched the show before, you know what we're about to do. I want to explain what we're about to do for the new viewers. If you've just joined us, this is your first show. What we like to do is we understand you. We understand that sometimes you want to talk to somebody really private, marriage and business. It's a private conversation. So we want to give, Minette, we're going to ask you how people can access you privately in a one-to-one capacity. Then we also understand you viewers who, you don't want to talk to her one-to-one because you're not ready for that level of conversation. But you do kind of want to, you want to go listen to her speak. Or maybe you want to jump on one of the happiness webinars and teleseminars that are coming up in the upcoming months. So we want to talk about that, Minette. Tell them where they can access you. Especially, we're going to put some Santa Barbara stuff in the search engine optimization in the keywords. So we want to make sure that people from Santa Barbara who see the show can see kind of where you're going to be in the next few months there. And then third, we know that some of you guys, your marriage and your business is super private, so you don't want to talk to anybody. You don't want anybody to know you're having problems. We totally get that. We totally honor the fact that you don't want anybody to know you're having problems. We sometimes don't either. Right? Because we're all just human, right? And we're just trying to create this big old happy place for ourselves. But God made us unique. And so it's an interesting little tricky ride. So we want to give people the opportunity to go read your stuff. I know you're a writer, you're an author. And so we want to give them an opportunity to be able to go read and get to know you that way so that, if they want to connect with you in another way, they already feel like they kind of know you. So why don't you open up that box for us, tell us one-to-one, in a group, and how they can lovingly stalk you and read all your stuff.
So my website is up there on the screen, MinetteRiordan.com, MinetteRiordan. And go read my blog. That would be a great place to start getting to know me, is reading some of my blog articles. Click in the search button and type in marriage if that's really what you're concerned about. So I would say that would be a great way. If you want to have a conversation with me, there is a big blue button to sign up for a discovery session, as I call it. It's basically just a half-hour opportunity for us to talk about whatever's going on. I have a contact button on my website. You're welcome to email me anytime. And also through Ready for Happiness on my provider page, there's a contact box there as well that you can put in. And, you know, Kathy said something about not wanting people to know that you're struggling. I have to tell you that for me personally, nothing changed until we asked for help. Right? That, you know, the truth is that if you sit at home and don't ask for help, nothing will change. I mean, so many of us have a whole library of self-help books, which are maybe read, half read, completely unread. And the truth is that reaching out and asking for help is the first step. And when you reach out and ask for help, it's not about airing all of your dirty laundry at all. It's just about saying, here's what I'm struggling with and what can I do? So I do one-on-one coaching. Kathy and I are looking at putting some group programs together. I love doing webinars. I have webinars going on all the time. And Facebook is a great place to follow me. I am facebook.com/Coach Minette. I always have my upcoming events listed there. Would love to see some of you join me on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find, Kathy. I'm not hiding out. I'm not hiding behind my computer. I do a lot of networking and public speaking. So I'd love to just show up and be there for people.
Nice. One of the things that you guys, for those of you guys who are coming back again, you know that each of our guests, you know, we only interview people who are accessible. We interview people who are real people, just like you and I. And so I want to thank you so much for being on the show today, Minette, and thank you so much for how you're contributing. You know, happy marriage, happy families, and happy businesses, it's all intertwined. Mm-hmm. And so I appreciate you taking the commitment that it's going to take to actually make an impact in the world in this place. I really appreciate you talking about how, you know, if somebody needs help, they need to reach out, because that's where the power happens. We all know that we're human. And so thank you so much, Minette, for being on the show today. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. It was always a ton of fun talking to you, Kathy.
I know, this show is so fun. Well, all right, everybody. You know what's going to happen now. We're going to go out and make some happy, y'all. And thank you so much, Minette, for being on the show today. And you guys, you have a great day, and we will see you on the next episode of Ready for Happiness Live. Go make some happy, y'all. Bye-bye.